Welcome to the Motormouth YouTube channel. I'm Zach.
I'm Andrea.
And we have a special guest this week, Mike Holt.
I know.
All right, so welcome to the Motormouth YouTube channel, and we do full-length car reviews each and every week, and we stop halfway through for a segment called Questions, Coffee, and Cars. We've spun it off. We're at number 116. How do you get a question in?
Follow along on Instagram at Motormouth_Andrea. Every Sunday morning, I put a post out on Instagram asking for questions. Once we gather our questions, the post is deleted, and we start the show.
Time now for Questions, Coffee, and Cars.
Poor Zach. We're back from South Korea.
Oh, I got sick the last day.
Sick.
On the last day.
I didn't get it. Oh my goodness. I hope I don't get it still. He can't be contagious anymore.
Well, you're in a confined space with me. Okay, here we go. Your questions from Instagram.
What was your absolute favorite part visiting South Korea?
Well,
I gotta say, driving the EV3
that's
was
cool.
pretty amazing, and being able to share it with you 18 months before it hits the North American market.
And we got to go up the top of the Lotte Tower, which is the tallest tower. I think it's the 5th largest tower in Asia. And yeah, I think just being there, it's our very first time. I've been to Japan several times. Andrea's been to Japan now once. So it's our first time in South Korea. So just the fact we were there. And boy, it's hot.
It's hot. By the way, it's the 5th largest tower in the world.
In the world, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, all the big towers are now in Asia.
Yeah.
Right? And then I guess of the Middle East, if you think of the big tall one. I can't remember the name of it because I'm on cold meds.
So
if I forget stuff in this, I have an excuse.
It's fair. It's totally fair. I loved it. I loved the people. We really enjoyed touring around. We stayed a few extra days and we navigated the subway system.
I think that's where I got the cold.
Yeah. It was really challenging to navigate. Anyway, the food was good. Everything was good. I don't know if I really have like a number one favorite.
The shopping was good.
Shopping, all of it.
The wine bar, the Korean barbecue.
Yeah.
There you go. Korean barbecue.
Chicken and beer.
Yeah, chicken and beer.
Yeah. As a fellow Canadian, my wife and I love your channel. Thank you. You regularly participate in world and North American press events. However, there seems to be times when a U.S. launch occurs and Canadian vehicles are not included or simultaneously launched. Example, the revised 2025 Ford Explorer. When that happens, any thoughts on working with a local dealer and reviewing a vehicle through them? I see other automotive journalists regularly do both official press events and also review from a dealership like Rady's Rides.
Well, typically the press events are before the dealer gets them. So if we're going to wait for it to arrive at the dealer, often we'll be waiting longer.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work out that way. And you got to remember, north and south of the border are two totally separate companies. So if you have Ford of USA and Ford of Canada, they run them totally separately. And unfortunately, because we're a smaller country, the US media teams have much more money to get the cars sooner.
That's the problem. And usually have a much larger budget than the Canadian team, so they invite more people than what the Canadian team might invite. And that's a really good one with the Ford Explorer. I was disappointed in that because we did do a walk around of it at the auto show in Toronto, and that was nice to get that out to everybody. And we're waiting to drive it. Now, the US team has already driven it, but the Canadian team, they did reach out to us and they're going to fly us to Ontario for a special event, which is great. So stay tuned for the Explorer. But it just comes down to us being Canadian, and the Americans, unfortunately, have a little bit more opportunity with that.
Okay, I'll explain one thing to you. Often when you go to a media launch, the cars that you're driving are not production cars. No. So if they have a launch that's, say, 3 months before the car is going to arrive at the dealership, or 4 months before, excuse me, you can't get it through video.
But I can get it.
Yeah, if you can get it 4 months before they arrive at the dealership, these are often pre-production units.
Yeah.
And for the car company, they still have to buy those units from the manufacturer. Say it's a Japanese car brand like Toyota. They have to buy those units from Japan, for example, And they're really, really expensive. Like what you would pay for a car, say it's a $50,000 car. These cars could be 2, 3, 4 times higher than that because they're often handmade. So there's big costs involved.
Because the poll that we get on our YouTube channel, I'll use Toyota as an example, they will join an American wave and they will bring up some Canadian journalists. And we are, one of those groups that always get invited up. And I really like that because then we're kind of on an even playing field with the Americans. And we do both Canadian and American specs. So it would be nice to have more opportunities like that. Have you asked anyone why the shiny black plastic?
Oh, it's funny because we were at the EV3 launch and we can't tell you what we saw, but they took us to the design headquarters and they showed us some vehicles and we were told to forget we were even there.
Yeah.
But we were there.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you about anything we saw, but we're walking around one specific vehicle and Andrea goes like this, quick question to the head of interior design. His name Joachim, I think, right?
Yeah, and I was like, I've got to ask this about the shiny hard plastic because the vehicle that we were looking at didn't have any. And we just recently put out our EV3 video and it doesn't have any shiny plastic. And I'm like, what? So I asked him, I said, is shiny black plastic cheaper? Is this an inexpensive alternative to doing something like cloth or chrome? And you know what he said? No. And I thought it was. And he said, no, it is not. The reason why we go with shiny black plastic is because we really think that it's technology driven. They felt like it looked just more tech driven.
Yeah, but all the vehicles that we saw, we didn't see any in there. So I think maybe with some brands, the tide is starting to turn and we harp on it all the time. It's like, this is a trend which time has passed. It's time to move on from the shiny hard plastic and come up with something better. The EV3 we can talk about because we've driven it. The other ones we're not allowed to talk about. But you can see on the inside of that, it's got cloth panels, door cards, dash, the crash pad and the door and the IP and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it can be done. And so he answered Andrea's question and then he said politely, please hold your questions till the end.
Because I was asking too many. So I had more for him after. But he did say after he told us about, no, it's not any less money to put shiny black plastic in. He said, we've just had enough of it. And I was like, right on. I've had enough of it. Great show you two put on. Thank you. Any updates on when the 2025 Carnival Hybrid will be launched?
Ooh.
We've got it. We've got a drive event coming up at the beginning of October in California to drive this hybrid.
Is it California or Texas?
California.
Okay, yeah. So we're driving the Carnival. And I got to tell you, being in Korea, carnivals everywhere. They had a pimped out executive carnival that took us to and from the airport, and they have what looks like on the top a big Thule roof rack, but it's actually the whole center here is cut out and it's much higher with air conditioning, big plush seats. Really nice executive vans are popular in Asia. So carnivals are everywhere there.
And I have to say, I had a different perspective of the carnival because we spent so much time in it in South Korea, sat in the captain's chairs, of course, but there were times where we had more people. And so I volunteered myself
Very
to
nice
sit
of you, Andrea.
in the third row. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so comfortable back here. I couldn't believe it.
You know why, Andrea? Because you just can't beat a minivan for comfort. Everybody piled in and out easily. You could walk through to the back. There's lots of room. Minivans are awesome. They just have a stigma. I think the Carnival's got to be the best looking minivan currently on the market.
Yeah, and I like the interior of the Carnival as well. And the price of the Carnival is very good.
I can't wait to see what the price of the hybrid's going to be.
Yeah, me too.
I think that will, you think about how successful Toyota's been with the Sienna. You can't get a Sienna minivan hybrid. I think there's a 2-year wait list. So we'll see what happens with Carnival.
I'm suspicious about that 2-year wait list with the Sienna. Will you guys be getting a Buick?
Can I just quick question.
Yeah.
Quick story.
Yeah.
We were on a Toyota ride and drive event over on Vancouver Island. This was 15 years ago. And one of the engineers was there. And he had I had a daughter, obviously, and they were on the way to the hospital, and they didn't make it to the hospital, and she was born in the van.
Oh, in the Sienna?
And guess what her name is?
Sienna.
Sienna.
Aw, that's so cute.
Yeah, so I was like, that's commitment.
That's pretty cool. Will you guys be getting a Buick Enclave to drive anytime soon?
Okay, which one is the Enclave?
The Enclave.
Okay, this drives me crazy with the Buicks. Okay, let me try and go through all the Buicks. There's I was going to say Insight. It's not the Insight is a Honda.
Yes.
I can never do this. Envision.
Yeah.
Enclave, you just mentioned that.
One more, the smaller one. What is it? You always want to call it an Insight.
There's Avenir as a trim.
No, it's not.
And then there's the one that's the GX, the something GX.
Do you want me to say?
Yeah, I can never remember these Buicks.
Okay, the base Buick is the Envista.
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 Jeez, those names are so confusing.
Yeah.
And then I want to call them Insight, but that was Honda's car.
That was Honda's.
That was the old,
which
basically,
they don't make anymore.
the Civic Hybrid, which they should have kept. You think about Honda. Honda had a Civic Hybrid, basically, was the Insight. And then they got rid of it. And then they're rushing and they're making a hybrid again.
I know.
It's like
So
some of
silly.
their choices are so silly.
So silly.
Yeah, so what was the question again?
I don't know, the Enclave. I don't know when we're getting that.
It'll be coming in the fleet eventually. So there's a bunch of
We have to
GM
wait
products
for it.
that we have to drive. We've got to drive the Silverado EV. We've got to drive the Equinox EV, the Enclave, and we're going to drive the Suburban and Tahoe
That's right.
in Texas.
That's right.
And
we're
going,
heading there soon.
And guess what? We're going to the Texas State Fair. That'll be cool.
Oh, that's going to be a blast. That'll be really fun. Some good barbecue there. Best place for a barbecue in Seoul. You know what? Gosh, there are just so many places to pick. Come on.
Okay, so with the first night, we're all kind of jet lagged and blurry eyed, and they say, okay, we're going out for dinner. We all pile into this coach. I think the coach took 30 minutes to drive 5 blocks.
Yeah.
And then we get out of the coach, and Andrea and I are near the front. We walk in, and we say, there's this really nice gentleman there. We walk in, and he goes, oh, hey, what's your name? What's your name? Later, we find out this is the CEO of Kia, or the chairman, one or the other. He's the top guy.
Top guy.
And we're like, oh, hey, I'm Zach. And then he goes, oh, I'm Andrea. I had no idea.
Shaking her hand. Wonderful to meet you. Welcome.
And I'm like, all right.
Have a seat.
Yeah.
Enjoy your
barbecue.
night. Wow. I mean, that was incredible.
And he came up and he gave a speech. Real gentleman. He came around to everybody's table and did a cheers with everybody. But anyway, that was Korean barbecue that night. Korean barbecue is so much fun because it's interactive, right?
It's interactive, but you know what? There's just so many good ones. I don't think I could pick a top. We were kind of carted around to different restaurants. Zach and I stayed an extra few days, but we ended up going for the fried chicken and beer.
Chicken and beer.
Which was delicious. And so...
No beer for Andrea.
No beer for me. No, I didn't have beer. I did. They didn't have, I usually have like a gin and soda. They didn't have any soda, so you guys would laugh. I did it on the rocks. I'm like, oh, just give me some gin, a shooter of gin.
That sounds like an alcoholic, Andrea.
And they give me some lime. Anyway, I made my own drink. I mean, it did have some water in it. But anyway, it was delicious.
So we have a friend and we go out and he always has a double vodka.
Ooh.
And he says, which I just couldn't drink. He has a double vodka and he says, just put 1 ice cube in it so I don't look like an alcoholic. That's what he said.
I don't know how he does
That
it.
was Andrea that night.
I'm not like that. Oh my gosh. Hey, have been following your show for a bit and really love the information and reviews you provide. Thank you. I'm wondering, what can consumers do if we have issues with a new car that the dealer is not willing to address, other than going to court? I'm in the Vancouver, BC area. So I've got some suggestions. First off, contact head office. Have a case number, let them know what's going on with the dealership, and let them know why you're so disappointed. If nothing comes out of that, then you can file a complaint with the Canadian Motor Vehicle Arbitration Plan, but not all manufacturers are involved in this, and you didn't say
which brand it is. Okay, well, this is one thing you can also do is try a different dealer. Like, you got to remember, if it's a, say a Ford or a Toyota or a Porsche or whatever, the badge on the front is honored at all dealerships, right? So if you've got a Ford, you don't have to go to the Ford dealer you bought the car from. You can go to a different dealer and you can get them to look at it. And sometimes just having a different set of eyes on it can be something that you can deal with. Andrea is absolutely right. The first line is to go and open a file with the head office. And then if there's an issue that they can't seem to resolve, you can also ask for their, excuse me, each company will have like a regional master tech that goes around to dealerships and diagnoses and helps fix really problematic cars. And you can ask when that person will be at the dealer next, and maybe they can look at it then.
There's also, because you're specifically in BC, there's a Vehicle Sales Authority of British Columbia, and they monitor dealerships and their practices. So I would also get in touch with this organization and you could file a complaint. But I would start with head office first and then go from there. And the other one about going to different dealerships,
go to a different dealer.
Is a great idea.
Because they don't need, the thing is, like if you go to Sally's Ford and then you go to Bob's Ford, they don't know you went to Sally's Ford. They're going to open a new warranty claim, or if there's and then they're going to run it through the system. So sometimes just having a fresh set of eyes on it will help.
Is 54,000 kilometers too much for a used 2023 Kia Telluride?
I say no, because it all comes down to how you're gonna drive it. Say you don't drive that much and you only do 10,000 kilometers a year, it'll all even out in 4 or 5 years when you want to go and sell it. The good news is, because it's a higher mileage or kilometer car and it's only 1 year old, two things actually. One is that's all highway driving.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's been driving it on the highway, which means it's really not stressful on the car. And then the other thing is you're going to get a good deal on it because it's a high mileage 1 year old car. So if you can get a screaming good deal on it, and you're going to keep it for several years, it's all going to even out in the end. Yeah,
and I pulled some pricing. They range from 49,000 used. It was on Auto Trader online in Canada. So 49,000 Canadian all the way up to 66,000 Canadian. So because of the higher mileage, you should get it for less. So I think it's I think you'll be fine, but just look at the history. Make sure that he did the maintenance or she did the maintenance in the year. And you can also ask the question, obviously it's got to be highway driving. You'd never put that on in the city.
Maybe if they're driving Uber.
Yeah, maybe Uber. Maybe it was an Uber.
See, yeah, that's one thing you'd want to check it out. But anyway, you could probably see that. Maybe if you do, and pull a Carfax on the car as well and make sure that something glaring isn't popping out, and get it inspected, because a mechanic will be able to look at it. If it's all been highway driving, all the things like wear items like suspension bushings, all of that and the brakes will really show. If it's all highway driving, the brakes should be still pretty good.
Yeah, I would definitely look at that. If it's Uber, I don't know, then I might reconsider if it was an Uber
I don't know
driven
how you would,
vehicle.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. But highway driving, no. See, highway driving is great.
In British Columbia, I'm not sure about other jurisdictions, you actually have to claim on your sales report if it's being used as a taxi or a shuttle vehicle, something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know where you live,
yeah,
but hopefully where you live, they have something similar.
Hope your trip to Korea was as awesome as you showed on Instagram. It was. So 2 questions about Toyota and Lexus twins. First question is about the Grand Highlander and TX. Any word on when the stop sale will end? And second question, I know this is very early, but how has the reliability been so far for the Land Cruiser and GX? Any complaints yet? So I reached out to Toyota Canada for you to find out about the stop sale and when they will be back.
When will they be
selling.
back?
They don't have an answer at this time, but what they do tell us is they're working very hard at this time to fix the issue. Okay,
so it's a side airbag issue. So all of the vehicles sold already have a recall on them. So I'm not sure if maybe the part has to be redesigned with the part manufacturer. I'm not sure.
No.
So obviously it's a bigger fix. To do a stop sale and stop production for this long, it's been a couple of months now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It doesn't seem... That seems like it's maybe more complicated.
Obviously more complicated. For Toyota, you know, they're so good when I ask these questions, getting back to us, to say that we just don't have an answer for you at this time, but we're working on it. I mean, that's your answer, straight from the horse's mouth.
Okay, so GX and Land Cruiser, it is way too early to kind of get a barometer. I have been looking on some of the Facebook groups. There's lots of Facebook groups around Land Cruiser especially, and the people that have them so far seem to be very, very happy with them.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Same with GX.
Yeah.
No issues at this time.
Oh wait, no, that's not true.
You've got a GX?
GX has the 3.4 liter twin turbo, and then they have the engine replacement in Tundra.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that spills over to that vehicle. I would suspect it might. So, but that is all going to be changed if you have one of those vehicles. And I'm not sure if the GX falls under this.
I haven't heard any complaints about the GX so far.
Yeah. I like the GX better than the Land Cruiser. Andrea disagrees, but
I like the Land Cruiser.
I like
so
the
cool.
GX better. GX looks so sweet, Andrea.
Hey guys, I hope your trip to South Korea went well. Enjoyed seeing the post. Thanks. Do you expect the Crown Signia to hit the press fleet before the end of the year? Yeah.
It's coming.
It's here.
I sent the email out saying, when is it coming? It's supposed to be coming anytime soon. So.
And a viewer reached out saying he got a Signia in Ontario, and he believes that he is probably the first one on the road.
Everybody that gets it early says they were the first. This is the first one in Canada. It's like, come on.
Hey.
You think there's only one on the truck?
I haven't seen one on the road yet here. But maybe he sees that he's the only one on the road at this time.
Back to the pre-production prototype vehicles. Toyota, you might have seen our RAV4 that we drove a week or so ago with the maple leaf on the hood. So in Canada, Toyota's their 60th anniversary. And they had a cavalcade of cars that drove from Newfoundland all the way here to British Columbia, 6,000 kilometers or something like that. And there was only two vehicles that went the whole way. It was the Signia and the Land Cruiser, because back in 1960, the Toyota Crown, because it's a Crown Signia. The Toyota Crown and the Land Cruiser were two of the vehicles that were on sale. So they're current models today. That Toyota Crown Signia, the white one, if you see any coverage of that trip, is a pre-production vehicle, handmade, and had to be shipped over from Japan, and it cost them a fortune. And if you went to the auto shows and you saw it in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, that's the same car. So when you go to the auto show and you see those vehicles on the stand, often they are pre-production, hand-built units. It costs them a lot of money, but they used it for that cross-country trip.
That Crown Signia, the one I climbed through the back to get the shot, that was pre-production. So
that's insert clip here of Andrea climbing. It's the best view you're going to have all day, Andrea. Looking at you going in there.
That was a lot of fun.
It was
a lot of fun to do.
Okay, before we go, in Vista, Enclave, Encore.
And?
There's one more?
Yeah.
Insignia?
Vision.
Avenir.
Vista, Envision, Encore, and Enclave. Anyway, he'll get it. He's going to get it.
No, I've been covering the auto industry for over 30 years, Andrew. If I can't remember the names of the cars, that's a problem. Buick has a naming. I think Buick's got a naming problem.
Right.
I would just it's the RW350. It's easier to remember for me. Alphanumeric.
What about, but you remember like Stelvio and Giulia, X1, X2,
Yeah, but the problem,
X3.
they don't all rhyme with each other. Like they're all kind of like,
because they're all E's.
It's all alliteration.
It's
alliteration. I just can't get my head around.
I get messed up with XC40, let's say, from Volvo, and CX something from Mazda.
CX90 and XC90. Those two I get mixed up all the time.
Anyway, that's a wrap for us on Questions, Coffee, and Cars 116. If you want to get a question and follow along on Instagram at motormouth_Andrea, every Sunday morning I put a post out asking for questions. Once we gather our questions, the post is deleted and we start the show.
See you then.